Today I'm travelling west to a place called Rosneath in beautiful Argyll. When there, I will tell you about a man called John Smith, who was a double murderer. But in fact, you could describe him technically as a serial killer. Today, Rosneath is mostly modern housing, but when John lived there in 1726, it was a cluster of a few houses around the old village kirk. Very few of these old houses still stand, but perhaps this wee cottage dates back to that time. I bet this lum has reeked for a very, very long time. John Smith's wife Margaret was expecting his child. The couple should have been happy and planning the arrival of the child. John would have watched his wife's belly swell as the life inside grew. John, who would later say that Margaret was kind and good to him, had dark thoughts growing in his head, ideas that no amount of visits to the kirk would dampen. On the 3rd of September 1726, John Smith lured his wife to a body of water, a burn or an isolated inlet in the Gairloch. Then, when he was sure no one else was around, he pushed his wife over, grabbed her by the ankles and pulled with all his strength. As he pulled, he did have second thoughts, and he would later admit he stopped and let his wife pull her head above the water. He used her angry reaction to this violent attack as an excuse to continue his murderous assault with renewed vigour. When Margaret had stopped thrashing around in the water and he was sure she was dead, John fled the scene. He would have thought he got away with murder. With no real effective police force in Argyll in the 1720s, and no such thing as an autopsy being done. But John did not lay low and thank his lucky stars that he was not dangling at the end of a hangman's noose. This was not the first time John Smith had killed. His first victim was his sister, and to add to the horror, she was also with child.
Explore Provan Hall after dark.
Is it really haunted?
Join us to find out.
If you dare.
John killed his sister, Catherine, in December 1725, almost a year before he killed his wife. The method of doing away with his sibling was the same one he had used in murdering his wife. John lured his sister, Catherine Smith, to a body of water, and after pushing her over, grabbed her by the ankles and pulled upwards, forcing the terrified, struggling woman under the water and holding her there until all life had slowly ended. This form of killing would be called by modern criminologists his modus operandi, his preferred way of killing. John's luck ran out. With the death of his sister, and now a wife missing, the law came knocking. He was arrested by the local sheriff, John Campbell of Manmore. Initially, John did not admit to the killing, but after a search was made of his house, incriminating evidence was found. Why did he kill his wife, after seemingly getting away with murdering his sister? Did John do away with Margaret, after perhaps confessing his dark secret to her, in a drunken slip of the tongue, or shout a threat during a heated argument, "I'll kill you like I did Catherine," or perhaps an attempt to rid a guilty conscience made him confess his secret? No, none of these was to seal Margaret's fate. In John's house, papers were found that indicated he was seeing a local woman. John Smith, his motive for killing his wife was simply to get her out of the way, so he was free to start a new life with this woman. On being shown the incriminating evidence, John confessed to his father-in-law, then to Campbell the sheriff, and then the local minister. John was then escorted to this church, the old kirk, and publicly confessed his crimes to the congregation. Standing in front of the church attendees, and it would have been packed, He told that neither of the women he killed had done anything to provoke him to commit such acts of violence. He stated that his wife Margaret was a good woman and wife. No doubt, John Smith would have asked for God's forgiveness and mercy. It was said in the reports that he showed great signs of regret and humility in the church. John was then transported to Dumbarton, where he was locked up in a town's tollbooth to await his trial. The trial was held in Dumbarton on the 13th of December 1726, before the Bailey of the Legality of Lennox. It was a foregone conclusion, and John was found guilty and sentenced to death. The execution was to take place in Dumbarton on the 20th of January 1727, and once hanged, his body was to be buried at the foot of the gallows. As the sentence was read out, Smith seemed unconcerned. John Smith committed a double murder, but in fact it was 4 people he killed, because both women, his wife and his sister, were pregnant. So he could technically be regarded as a serial killer. Nowadays, to become a serial killer, you've got to kill at least 3 people, and the killings have to be in a certain period of time. John, who killed 4 over a year, can certainly be regarded as an Argyll serial killer. Where did John Smith kill his sister and wife? Was it in this burn that runs close to the church? It's called the Clachan burn. There's some quite deep pools in this body of water. Well, it's really close to the church, so you might have thought that his victims, their screams and shouts, cries for help, the sound of them splashing and struggling in the water might have been heard. But remember, at the time, there was no streetlights. There'd be less people living in the vicinity of the church. Or it may have been that he killed them in the Gairloch, taking them to the shore, perhaps to fish or collect shell food, and then attack them then. Be easier to dispose of the body, less chance of being heard and seen. We'll probably never know. The facts have been lost through time. I had a wee walk around the graveyard at Rosneath, and there's some very interesting headstones. Now, I'm not a Rangers or a Celtic supporter, but as I said, found this quite interesting. There's some also very, very old headstones, which you might find interesting. If you've enjoyed the story, please like and subscribe. You might like to take one of our dark history tours, ghost tours, or paranormal investigations that are held in Perthshire, Glasgow and Stirling. If so, please visit our website, which is www.historyandhorrortours.com. Thank you.